If you're thinking about selling your home in Santa Fe, one of the first questions you probably have is this: what is this actually going to cost me? And I'll tell you right now, most sellers underestimate this. Not because anyone is hiding anything, but because there are multiple moving parts and every transaction is a little bit different. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what sellers in Santa Fe typically pay in a residential sale using real-world categories and a realistic example so that you can understand what to expect. And by the end of this, you will have a much clearer picture of your potential net. Let's start here. In spring 2026, seller costs in Santa Fe typically range between 6 and 8% of the final purchase price. Now that is a range, not a fixed number. Some sales come in lower, some come in higher, but this gives you a very solid baseline. And I want to break down what actually makes up that number. So let's start with broker compensation. This is the largest line item. This is the fee paid to the listing brokerage and, if applicable, the brokerage representing the buyer. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is negotiable. There is no fixed or required rate. It is agreed upon between the seller and the listing broker. Now, in New Mexico, broker compensation is also subject to gross receipts tax, which is paid to the state of New Mexico. So when you are calculating this cost, it is not just the percentage. You also need to account for that tax on top of the compensation. This is often the largest component of seller costs, and it is also one of the most important decisions you make in terms of how your property is positioned and marketed. Next is the title commitment for the buyer. In New Mexico, it is customary for the seller to pay for the buyer's title insurance policy. This is often referred to as the title commitment. This cost is based upon the purchase price of the property. It is a one-time fee, and it ensures that the buyer is receiving clear title to the property. Next is the survey. In many transactions, the seller will pay for a survey or improvement location report. This is a bird's eye sketch of the property that confirms property boundaries, structures, and encroachments. The cost can vary depending on the size and complexity of the property, but it is a standard line item to plan for. The septic evaluation. If the property is on a septic system, a septic evaluation is required by the New Mexico Environment Department before a homeowner can transfer ownership to someone else. This is an inspection of the system to confirm that it is functioning properly. This is a very common seller expense in Santa Fe, especially in areas outside of the city core. Next, HOA and COA fees. If your property is part of a homeowners association or a condominium association, there are fees associated with that. These can include resale certificate fees, document delivery fees, transfer fees, status letters. These costs vary depending on the specific association, but they are very common and often overlooked by sellers. Additional closing costs. So there are also smaller line items that add up: escrow fees, recording fees, courier or document fees. Individually, these may not be large, but together they contribute to your overall cost. So let's do a cost comparison example. We're going to walk through a simple example so you can see how this comes together. Let's say your home sells for $800,000 in 2026. Using that 6 to 8% range, your total seller costs might fall somewhere between $48,000 and $64,000. Now let's break that down in a simplified way. So broker compensation will likely be the largest portion of that number, plus the gross receipts tax on top of it. The title policy is typically a few $1,000s depending on the price point. The survey, I'm seeing the minimum cost for that running about $800 to $900, but it can go higher depending on the complexities of the property. Now, when I represent a seller, I always investigate if there is a survey available and if the title company will accept it. I know this before the property hits the market, so I can ensure the seller doesn't pay for a new one unless the title company requires it. Next, the septic evaluation. I'm seeing this cost around $1,000, But keep in mind, any needed repairs that this evaluation reveals will fall to the seller unless negotiated otherwise. HOA and COA fees. These typically run a few $100s, and then your additional closing costs are layered in. Again, these are general ranges, but this is the level of detail you want to be thinking about. Now, when I work with a seller, I prepare a detailed seller net sheet. This is based on my suggested list price, and it includes all of these estimated costs. So before you ever go on the market, you have a clear understanding of what you are likely to walk away with. There are no surprises at closing. And more importantly, it allows us to make strategic decisions about pricing and negotiation from an informed position. Now, a few things can shift your final costs: the negotiated broker compensation, whether a survey is required, whether your property has a septic system, HOA or COA structure and fees, negotiated concessions during the transaction. This is why two sellers with the same price point can walk away with different net proceeds. So, what can a seller expect to pay when selling a home in Santa Fe? Typically, about 6 to 8% of the final purchase price in spring 2026. This includes broker compensation, title costs, surveys, septic evaluations, HOA or COA costs, and standard closing costs. With every seller I consult with, I break this down in detail so you know exactly what to expect before you list. And I want to emphasize this one more time: everything is negotiable. But what I've shared with you here is what I see again and again in real transactions across the Santa Fe market. If you are thinking about selling and want a clear picture of your numbers, reach out. We can walk through your specific property and build a strategy that makes sense for you. And if this video was helpful, please like and subscribe so you can continue learning how the Santa Fe real estate market really works. I'll see you in the next one.